Yeah, so first problem in tutorial 6, we're going to enter a name. We have to check the name that it is the right type of input. And so the right type of input is it's all letters of the alphabet and no numbers. So we see here that when they put all letters of the alphabet, that was fine. But when they put some numbers, that was not fine. And so we get an error message. So we're going to check that. Now, how I plan to do that is we're going to do that with a loop, which I'll call an error trapping loop. So basically, we read in the input, and then we check to see if the input meets our requirement. And in a while loop, as long as it doesn't meet our requirement, then we keep giving them an error message, and they have to input it again. But so once we've got a decent input, then what we're going to do with the decent input is we're going to, this is what happens if it's good input. We take each character, one character at a time from the string, and we add a space to the end of it, and we print that out, and we convert the whole thing to uppercase. So my way of doing that, I think, would be, look, this thing is a string. So strings can be accessed by index. So each character in that string has an index position. So the first one there, the Z or Z, however you like to say it, that's position 0. And then the E is position 1, I is position 2, and N is position 3. But we don't have to remember those. We can just start at position 0, and we can add 1 to the position, and keep doing that until we get to how many characters there are in the string. So that will make a nice little while loop. That's what we're going to do. We'll start with a counter, have it 0, and then we'll just add 1 to it until we get to the end. And when we get to the end, that's when we do. Now, each time we do that, we're going to take that letter, we're going to add a space to it, and that will get our thing. So let's get our variable. We'll call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it name, but it's going to be an input. Sorry, we're going to get that from the user. So it's been a long day, huh? Can't type the word input. So we're going to use the input function, which is an inbuilt function. All right, and the input function, what it does is it displays a string on the keyboard. Sorry, on the screen, and then it takes an input from the user, and will output that as a return value from that function. And so we're going to store that into a variable called name. The actual input text is given to us here, so I'm just going to copy that, and I'll put that into and there we go. So the thing is, now we have to check that name is okay. And how it's okay is if it's only alphabetic characters. The only requirement is that it be alphabetic characters. Now, what we saw when we did the lecture like yesterday or day before was that we can test with some Boolean functions. We can test our strings, and one of the Boolean functions we've got is it alphabetic, right? Is alpha, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say when it's not alpha. So oh, I'm not displaying. I thought it was kind of dark in here. All right, so I mean, people at home can see it, and I can see it, but I'm sorry, I've got a couple of people here that sitting very patiently, but not seeing anything. So what we're going to check for is when the name is not alpha. So how we can do that is just like that. We say, is the name alpha? And if it's not alpha, then we've got this error. And how we do the error is actually with a print statement. And I might have to make this a bit wider because I think that's kind of a long print statement. There it is. Actually, it is kind of long. There it is. That's our error message. So that's going to go in here. Oh, wrong place. It's in the print. And yeah, it is kind of long. Didn't even have enough room to display it all, but that's it. Okay, so this loop is going to require them to put in a name, which is the right type of name. We test that it's the right type of name by using the Boolean string function, which is alpha. Is alpha, we'll test to see if a string is alphabetic. Or in other words, if it's alphabetic, if all the characters in the string are alphabetic letters. So we got no numbers or special characters or anything like that. So what we've done, we've just to review, it's only a little thing we've done. What we read in from the user a name, and then we check to make sure that that name has no numbers or special characters in it. And when we've done that, at the end of that, we have a good name. And so now we can go and do the next thing. The next thing we have to do is one character at a time. We have to read the characters from the string, and we have to add a space to the end of them and put that into something else. So what we could do is we would have a index value, which could we start with that being 0, and we could have a string for our name. I'm going to call it UN for uname, uppercase name. And what I'm doing here is that double quote, that is a empty string because I didn't put anything in between it. There's nothing in between there. I may not know. I know it looks like there's something there, but there isn't. All right, so this is an empty string. You can do that. We've got a string with a null value. So we're going to do that because we're going to do concatenation. Concatenation is where you add strings together just using a plus symbol. So we're going to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through one character at a time from that string. What string? From our name. So we've got our name there. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, while our counter, our index value, while our index value is less than the length of our string, and our string is called name. So as long as it's less than that, what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of those. Now, I guess what I should show you here is, well, you'll see it in the command. What we're going to do is we're going to take the character of that, and we're going to add it to our, we're making a new string. So we'll take this string, UN, right? And we're going to say that's going to be equal to to itself, plus what? Plus whatever is the character at our position in the thing. So for example, with saying at position 0, the Z, then at position 1, the E, etc. So how do we get that position? Well, it's like this. This is the name of the string. If we use square brackets, we can put the index value inside the square brackets, and that will get the character at that position. So if I was 0, this would just give me Z, which is the character at the 0 position. So I hope that makes sense to you. And then next time through, I will be 1, and then we'll get E. So we're going to add that to that string, but we're also going to add a space. So this time I'm doing the quotes, but I'm putting a space between them. That gives a space that's going to be added to this thing. Then all we have to do is increment the counter. And that's it. All right, so that goes through and makes the name bigger. We've got this thing called uname, and we can just print it. I think that will work. I think that will take it. Shall we try? Let's try and see. Run that. And that's so it's like this. We're going to put in the test things here. So the first test there is for Zane. And what it does is it didn't finish it. That's why you have to test. I missed one step. Oh, it has been a long day. It's been a long day. All right, so where's my idle? The program is in this one. So I missed one step. What I have to do is I have to convert it to uppercase. So I didn't do that. So we'll do that after the while loop. We'll say we're going to take UN and we're going to make it equal to whatever it was before in uppercase. So that should do it. Let's try again. So this is the conversion to uppercase, which I had missed. Very bad. We got it this time though. All right, so there it is. We got that in uppercase. Let's try the error example. We'll run it with the error because we're supposed to run it twice. The error was when we put numbers in it. So it's not supposed to be able to have numbers. That's why we had the is alpha. The is alpha is testing to see if we've got anything else besides letters of the alphabet. And if we do, it tells us we've got an error and tells us to do it again, right? So, And so now it's okay. And so whatever we type in there will be converted. That's it. Any questions on that? Can we move on? Should we move on? We don't have to put anything in the brackets. Correct. It would be wrong to put anything in these brackets.
So we don't have to write Zane?
No, no, because Zane is in this UN thing. Okay, UN is, so here is where the Zane was. It was in the name. And then we took that one character at a time and we added it to UN. So UN is a string that we made by concatenating. See the pluses? So we added these strings together to make a bigger string. And then it was that string that we added. Okay, maybe I should put that. Spaces in it. So we put the spaces into the new string. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions? That was a really good question. Thank you, Hint. Any other questions? No questions, then we go faster. So it's okay. I mean, I don't mind questions, but you probably like going home too. So what this one is about, question 2, is the same problem, but we have to apply a function to it. We have to take this and convert it into a function. So I think you can get 2 functions out of there. You can get one function where you get the name. Then you can get another function where you convert it to upper. Yes, I think you're supposed to. Okay, yeah, problem 2 would be enough. Yeah, because they're both the same. But I'm going to save this as problem 2 now. So there it was a problem 1. Let's save it as problem 2. That was the easy way to do it, is just make problem 1 and then save it as problem 2. And so to make a new, I'm going to make 2 new functions. One function is going to get the name. So I'll just call that get name. Now get name is not going to have any inputs, but it's going to have an output, which is going to be the name. So that'll have a return value. Let's just call it n. Okay, so that's our one function. The other function that we're going to do is we're going to make it upper and space. So let's call this up space. Now this function is going to return an uppercase with spaces string. So I'm going to call that US, uppercase with spaces. Now this one actually is going to take in a variable. So I won't call it n, I'll call it m. So this one has an input and has an output. The first one only has an input. Now what the first one does is it does this stuff. So why would I type all that out again? I won't. I'm just going to say, oh, well, the first function, actually what it does is it's going to do all this bit of code. It's going to ask, what's their name? It's going to check that it's alpha, and then it's going to return that name. So I'm going to take this code and I'm going to put it into my function. So I can do that with a cut and paste. Now, when I do that, what I notice is that my indents are not going to be quite right, but they're actually just wrong by exactly one indent. So I just take all of the code that I just pasted in there and add one indent with a tab. Just tab every one of those. Now, only the stuff that I added, because that return, it's at the right tab. So now I have a function, which it does. Now, I have to be careful. I'm supposed to be returning n. Here, I don't have an n. What I've got is I've got names. So let's change this to n. Because name was a global variable. We don't want to mix up our global variables with our local variable. And so I'm returning a local variable. So I'm just making sure that everything that I did there is in the same type of variable. So all I did there is I took all that code and turned it into a function. We often do something like that. I mean, we'll look at our code and say, oh, that could be a function. So just create a function and put it in there. It's very easy. So the only tricks there is, okay, what are the inputs and what are the outputs? This one didn't have any inputs, but it's got that output. Now, the next thing I suppose I should do is I should have a main. And in the main, I am going to create a variable called name, and it's going to get its value from get name. So get name. So this is going to be where, and actually, yeah, why would I type that out? Because I might get errors if I do that. So I'm just going to copy this. And in the main, this is where I call that function. So I declared that function here and I call it there. And so in the main, that's going to work. Now I've got this other function that's going to do this stuff. So, okay, all of that stuff, I'm just going to put into this other function. So I'm just going to cut that and paste it in here into this. And again, I'll have to tab every one of them because they have to be indented inside the function. See how the def starts there? Everything's supposed to be indented. Everything that's part of that function should be indented. So I just go to each line and indent it once. Every one of those lines I'm indenting once, except the return line, because it's already indented. I already did that. So I just took that code and turned it into this. Now I'm using M. Okay, so these are new variables. They're fine, but I'm not using name. I'm using M. So I'm just going to change that to that. So this should be M. And then we're good. So this takes in the name, but I change it to a local variable. So it's going to be passed in as name. What I'm going to do now is it returns that value. So here I call it UN. I'm going to put that in the main. I guess so. I'll call this UN. UN is the output of this function. So just copy that function. UN is going to be the output. But the thing is, here in the main, we're using a global variable, which is called name. So I'll just put that in there. That is your program. I mean, it wasn't very hard to take the previous one and convert it into functions. We have two functions, so let's have a look at them. Each function has two parts. There's the part where you define the function. So here we're defining the first function, get name. And then there's the part where you call the function. So the program actually starts here on the main. First thing it does is, go and run this function called get name. Get name runs, and what does it do? It returns a name. And that's going to be stored in the variable called name. And then the next thing we're going to do is call this other function. We're going to pass that name in as an input. It's going to come in here as a local variable M. These things are going to happen to it, and then we're going to return another thing called US, which here is actually going to be called uname. Then we're going to print it. Let's run it and see. It should run the same. If we did it right and I didn't make any errors, it should run the same as it did last time. So Zane, that doesn't. So that means I got an error. Okay, so it says US is not defined. Here I called it US. Here I called it UN. Oops. Let's run it again. Oh, well, I know why I did that. So that I didn't have these the same. So I'll just change this one to US. That'll work. Let's go. Again, be careful with that. Watch your variables. I'm going to kill that so we can see it again without all the red lines all over it. What's your name? Zane. And that works fine for Zane. And then we're going to run it again with the bad name, ZE33. And we have to do it again. Okay. Any questions on that? So what we did, again, we took the bits of code that we thought we might use more than once or would nicely make a function. One was called getName, and one is called upspace. What upspace does is it takes that name as an input and it adds a space to it, and then it makes it into uppercase. Very, very nice. Huh? You like? Enough? One more, then we're done. So the last one is actually, this is a bit bigger because there's a bit more going on in the last one. So, and we can't use the other thing. We've got a few things going on. We have to make at least one function, but I think we're going to make two because we'll do the same as we did with the other one. We'll use an error trapping while loop to make sure that we get a good number. We're going to also use a special function from a library. There's a library called random, and we're going to use the random library. So that means we're actually going to have to start our program off with an import the random library. So the random library has some special functions. Now, how this works with the I and the J is the I represents the lower limit of the numbers that a random number can come from, and the J represents the number after the upper limit. And so if you put in here the numbers 0 and 5, the random numbers that could be produced would be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. It wouldn't be able to produce 5, but any of the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. They would be the only ones that could be reproduced if you did I and J as 0 and 5. So if you want to get 2-digit numbers, which we want, we could do from 10 to 100, because the smallest would be 10 and the highest would be 99. That's 2-digit numbers, right? And we could get 1-digit numbers by making the lowest 0 and the highest 10, because that would be the numbers 0 to 9. And that's what we're going to do in our program. We've got some other little functions there. We've got a hex function, which converts an integer to a hexadecimal. That's good. The problem is that we're working with strings. So before we're going to be able to convert anything to a hex, we'll have to convert it from a string to an integer, because hex works on integers, not strings. Oh, so that's about it, I guess. So let's look at how it works. We have to put in a good number, and it has to be 6 characters long. Anything else, if it's got anything which is not a number, then that gives us an error. And if it's not 6 characters, then that gives us an error. I think the easiest way to do that is actually do that in one conjunction condition, which is that we're going to say it has to be 6 characters long and it has to be numbers. We'll do it both at the same time. Okay, that's a conjunction. They'll be joined by an and. But that'll be in a while loop, because we're going to trap the errors in the while loop. Shall we start? Yeah, let's do it. So this has to be a new file because it's different than the other ones. So tutorial 6, and this is problem 3. And we are using random integers. So we need to import that library, because the random integer function exists in this library called random. And if we don't do this, we won't be able to get the random things. Now, the first thing we have to do is we have to get a number. It has to be a 6-character number. So, but you know that everything that we import from the, everything that we input is going to come as a string. So let's do that. Let's, so we could just call it no, I don't know. What do we want to call it? We want to call it a password or something. I'm just going to use a simple thing. Let's just call it P. P takes the value of input, and the input is going to be asking them to enter in a 6 characters. And so we'll do that. In fact, here's what it asks them. So we're just going to copy that. And that's what we ask them to give us a 6 integers. Now we do the test. So what are the things that we require? If it's not these things, we have to. So we're going to put our conjunction in there. It's going to be an and in the middle. So the first one is, so you got 2 things that has to happen. It has to be 6 characters long. Oh, that's easy. We just say if the length of P is equal to 6. So it must be, so if it's not equal to 6, then we're going to go into the loop. The other thing that it has to be 6 characters long, and it has to be all numbers. It can't be characters. All right, numbers. All right, so that would be a string function, and it's going to be is numeric. So it's kind of like the opposite of that is alpha. We had is alpha before, now we've got is numeric. Is it numeric? And so if those things are not true, then we have to say, well, that's bad. You did it wrong. So I'm going to copy this and we're going to print that error. If those things weren't true, then we get the error. Now, I'm going to make it so that it incorporates both of those errors. The seed should consist of what? Of 6. Now, not 6 numbers because it's only one number, but 6 digits. So if it's 5 digits or it's 7 digits or it's not digits, then it will be the error. And so if it's the error, then we ask them to enter it again. So that's it. That took care of that. You know what? We were going to do this as a function, weren't we? Yeah, we're going to fix it as a function now. Got carried away there, right? So let's do this as a function. And so to do it as a function, we'll define that function. And we'll call it get pass. And there's no inputs to that. And then everything that I've done here just needs to be tabbed in one. And once we've done that, that will get the password. That'll be a good password. I mean, that's it. Oh, actually, it's called the seed. When I look at this, yeah, it's called the seed. So let's call it get seed. And I'm going to call this P, this S for seed instead of P. Yeah, okay. So we're going to get the seed. And so we're going to pass that seed out. So that's done with the return S. So there's our function that gets the seed. That's going to be called in the main. So in the main, we're going to say our seed is equal to get seed. So here we're calling the seed function, get seed function to get the seed. So once we've got the seed, we have to do 2 things to it. Let's see, our new function is going to be to make it a make password. Let's call that make pass. We could call it, oh no, let's use the one that it said to use. It called it generate password, same idea. So there's our function name. Sorry, define generate password. Okay, now, does this have an input? Yes, it's going to take the seed, whatever the seed is. I don't want to say seed and I don't want to say S. What can I say? SE. We're going to, and what it's going to do is it's going to pass out as a return value. It's going to return the password, which I'll call P. So how that's going to work is we're going to add 3 strings together, because what's going to do is it's going to, oh, we have to calculate these random numbers. Let's just copy that, because that's the way the random numbers thing works without the period on the end. So this is the bottom and this is the top. One of the random numbers that we want is going to be 2 characters long. This makes a 2-character long random, 2 numbers long random number. In other words, it's a random number between 10 and 100. A random, actually, so that's the number that we're going to put at the front. Our front number is going to be that. But we have to convert it to a string. So we're going to have that. And we have another one, which is going to be for the back. And the back one is going to go from 0 to 10. So this one gets a random number, which is 2-digit random integer. And this one gives a 1-digit random digit. I hope that makes sense to you how that works. Basically, we get a number, the smallest number could be is 10, the biggest number it could be is 99. That's 2 digits, right? That's all the 2-digit numbers from 10 to 99. This one, the smallest one it can be is 0, and the biggest it can be is 9. So that's a 1-digit random number. So we take those random numbers and we convert them to a string. So why are we doing that? So that we can add to a string that we've already got. We've got the string, which is the seed that they gave us. And so we're just going to make this new thing P, and it's equal to our front plus our seed plus our back. And so that's concatenation. It's going to take this 2-digit number, it's going to add it to the front. It's going to take whatever's passed in as the number there, it's going to add it to the middle, and then whatever is the 1-digit number, add it to the back, and that's going to be returned. So that's it. And so we can say, all right, so our password is going to be equal to, or takes the value from generate password, where we pass in the seed. And I guess then we could print, oh, right. We're not finished. When I look at this, yeah, what happened is it asks us to convert it to hex. Let's do this. So let's just print this so we can see. Oh, shoot. Hitting the wrong key. The seed. Oh, okay, no, the password before, so as an integer. And so we're just going to put that password in there. Do I need to convert it? No, it's already a string, isn't it? So yeah, so just P. So that's the password. It's actually, I'm saying it's an integer because these things are integers, right? And the seed was an integer. So what it would look like. Password looking like an integer. Maybe that's better because it's not an integer, but it just looks like an integer. So we're going to print that and we're going to see what that looks like. And then after this, we're going to print it here. But before we do that, we're going to convert it. The conversion is going to be, going to take P again. Well, let's call it a thing called hex. Hex P. And so we're going to convert the P to hex. So we do that this way. That's the hex conversion, right? But the problem is that the P is a string and the hex only works on integers. So we have to convert the string to an integer first, and then we can convert it to a hex. And so what will come out of there will be a hex value. Everybody understand what I did there? We got a string, we converted it to an integer, and then we can convert that to a hex. The string is P, and the result of that little function is going to be HP. Okay, I think we can run that. 2.6, problem 3. Invalid syntax. Oh, that's not good. Oh, what did I miss? Colon. All right, so please enter a seed. So if we put something which is not 6 integers, so if I just put 3 integers, shouldn't be 6 integers, should be 6 digits. I mean, that's not right. That's 1 integer, a seed of 6 digits. I mean, this is just because it's only one integer. So let's run it again. Okay, 6 digits. So if I put like 3, I find out that my program's wrong. All right, so let's find out what's wrong. The name P is not defined. Okay. I used the wrong name in the wrong place. So with the len, it's S, not P. Oops. Run it again. 6 digits, 1, 2, 3. It's only allowed to be 6 digits. 1, 2. So this is going to be, but it's 6, but it's not digits. Only allowed to be 6 digits. When I put in 6 digits, we can see that 6 digits. Then it goes and works. Passively looking at int is that. Oh, okay. So it's kind of working, but it's not printing at the end. Oh, that's because I don't have a print in the main.